Flores. He is a producer. He's an actor. He's been recurring on a little show called Queen of the South on, I believe, USA Network. He's been on a couple of other projects. He was a producer on my film, Lifelines. He's a producer and production designer on the Hazley animated series, as well as he plays a very key role, recurring role in the series. And like I said, and then he's also even got an opera background, so you could have seen him on stage in that, and we may even talk a little bit about everybody's backgrounds. He's also has been a previous live show guest on with Gunter in the past. I believe it was in our first season. He was on, it was either our first or our second season. He was on Inspired Change with some other very important guests. Anyway, so let's just dive right in, folks. We're talking about being mindful. We've got a crazy world today that we live in, and this is a non-political, show, but it's all about being mindful. It's about being caring. It's about, loving and helping one another and ways that we can inspire change. So, let me hand over the floor. First, DeVonna, you're up. Let's, tell me about little ways, talk about inspired change and what you are doing to inspire change. And then, DeVonna?
Okay. Well, one of the things is that, people think that you have to do something big and spectacular to inspire change, which is absolutely the opposite. It can be the teeniest, tiniest thing. A smile. A smile can change somebody's day, and people think, oh, that's trite, but it's true. When you smile or you do a good deed, and you do a good deed for somebody else, not only does the person that's getting the good deed done have a good serotonin release, but you do because you've just done something nice for someone, and then anybody that witnesses it also gets that serotonin release. And all you simply did was maybe say something nice, or held the door open, or whatever, or picked up something that dropped. And that one little tiny second of just being kind can, maybe she or he had a bad day or whatever, but you don't know. I just say you don't know what somebody else is going through. So if they're ugly or if they're crass, just try not to react to that, because it's about them, not you. And then you can inspire change by simply not reacting to the chaos that's in the world and finding that mindful spot inside yourself to just recenter and take care of you first. And once you manage to take care of you first, you can inspire all kinds of other change because you've done it within yourself. And once you grasp that, then the world is your oyster.
Thank you. Exactly. I mean, we see from, cries of racism and police brutality and elections, people are bullying each other over just the most simple things. I mean, you can't even go on social media to just communicate and even promote without someone getting offended because of whatever. And as I tell people, and I think in every day, I look at things, I said, when you're on one of my projects, I don't care what your ethnic background is. I don't care what your sexual orientation is. I don't care about who you voted for. We don't have to agree. But what we do have to do is just be human. And those are some of the things that Gunter talks about quite a bit on Inspired Change. Is being mindful of others. Really, taking a look around you, your surroundings. Walk a mile in someone else's shoes. You don't know if that homeless person down the street is a drug addict. Maybe they look like it. But maybe they were an attorney who lost their job. Or maybe they got sick and they got stuck. And then maybe pride, if they do have family, maybe pride hasn't allowed, and they think, oh, I waited, but it's never too late. always reach out to the people you don't think might need it. Say, hi, how are you doing? You could, if you're wearing a mask, say, I'm smiling under here. I actually had someone the other day says, I think you're smiling. I said, really? I am. And he goes, how'd you know? And he goes, I see it in your eyes. When you smile, you can tell someone is smiling. If because your eyes reflect in your face. And so those are just, it's about the little things. So Kristin, I'd like you to share a little bit of your 2 cents on inspiring change in others and being mindful to start out.
Well, I think everything begins with self. You can't change anybody else. You can only change the way you react to them. Plato once said, know thyself, which Cicero years later came back and said, these words uttered by Plato must come from the gods, because no man could ever have thought of them. I think about that, wow. It is true, you can't change anyone else. Change begins with oneself, and change is one of the most difficult things that a person can do. You get a child in a family situation. Every child in there has their little role that they play. And this one's the bad seed over here, and always gets, everything this kid does is wrong. It sets up a mindscape for these people that they just grow up and stay there. So I think in order to do some change, you start with yourself. You have to figure out where you're going, where you're coming from, and then you've got to figure out a way to make that change measurable. You have to tie it to reality. I could say I want to lose 100 pounds by Friday. Oh, it's not going to happen. It's got to be your change, your idea or your goal must be tied to reality. It's something that is attainable, and it should be something measurable. So we say, well, I can, for this moment, for this 1 minute, this hour, this day, not eat any sugar, or whatever that might be. And it's a very nice, measurable thing that we can begin to change. And I think the other thing that really bothers me about conversation today, in the world as we know it now, is when someone is talking, the person that they're talking to is already beginning to figure out their answer. Rather than listening to what they're saying, or what the person is saying, they're already figuring out how to refute and make their position known. I think part of mindfulness is where DeVonna went with it too. In the beginning was stopping and having a neutral response to what you're hearing. Don't judge it immediately. Give it a moment to act neutrally, to think about what they're saying. We're so quick. We jump in with our own point of view. And if we could just stop and neutralize that, we might do better and be more respectful of other people's ideas. That's my bit.
Thank you, Kristin. You touched on so many important things, and just even going back to some of the quotes from Plato and that comparison, it's simple things. It's common sense. And why is it so hard for people to grasp onto that? And we're gonna touch on that. So hold that thought, and we're gonna jump into that on the next bit. But you even brought up when you first started your topic to talk about. You said self-care. That brings me to, I didn't even mention that in the promos for today's show, is being mindful and well-being and inspiring change, and not just others but yourself. It all starts within. If you're not happy or you're angry or toxic, it's going to reflect. You're going to reflect that energy on other people. And so self-care is so important. Even if you can't afford to go have a spa day or go do this, it's little things. And we'll talk a little bit about things you can do for self-care that might help on that as well. So Andrew, I'd like you to share a little bit on your thoughts on how we can inspire change and mindfulness and well-being in the world as well.
Well, I for me, I think about an experience that happened. I'm from Waller, Texas, about 50 miles northwest of Houston, and I had some neighbors. They're from Compton, California. They're black, beautiful people, just gorgeous people. A couple of years ago, I was having a septic system put in, and so the man that was putting it in, he says, "Can I tell you something?" I said, "Sure. What's up?" He goes, "I'm the most racist SOB that you will come across, but I will do anything for that lady next door." And he was referring to my neighbor next door. So right there, you could have knocked me over with a feather, because it gives the reality that people, no matter how they be perceived as being most hateful or whatever, or racist, that people can change. And I thought that was just the most interesting statement that he had ever made to me. And people can change. And where a person may have done heinous things, doesn't mean that they can't get forgiveness, that would be from a higher power. And it's just incredible how things can change, people can change. And that inspired me to help me remember that, no matter what a person has done or what their past does not equal your future. And so, you go and take that as a lesson for yourself, hopefully to inspire you to do better.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just that little thing on how you're making a difference from someone that rightfully admitted how racist they are, but you planted a seed. There's little differences. There's ways that we can do things, and it's like touching on so many different things. And before we jump into the self-care, I said, okay, guys, hold that thought. I'm multitasking, being the producer, not used to always being that. So I'm not taking my usual notes as usual. What was it, someone we were going to step into, I think, before we jumped into self-care? Does anybody remember? Show of hands. So it's okay if we're live. We can make mistakes a little bit. DeVonna, do you remember what it? Okay, I can't hear you. Are you muted?
Self-care is the next thing that we were going to talk about.
Okay, I thought there was something before, but maybe it'll come back to me. Okay, so let's just dive kind of into starting within. And that's a good point, because of what Andrew said earlier about the guy that admitted that he was the most racist out there. Probably not. It's probably hard for him to do that. Who knows? But he admitted it, and I'm going, okay. But let's start with things that you can do because Gunter would probably touch on this as well. Things you can do to take care of yourself, to make yourself a better person. Because if you're gonna, and that could be a matter of being, practicing empathy. And when you're practicing mindfulness, let's start with DeVonna. Talk a little bit about steps to self-care before you actually can impose, well-being and mindfulness on others.
Well, you bring up a good point. It does have to start with yourself first. I remember back in the 90s, I was a big drama queen. I mean, I really was. Everything was so dramatic.
And you went into acting? Really?
That's why, yeah. Because one too many people accused me of acting when I was being real, So I said, well, somebody's seeing this in me. I might as well see where it'll go. And here I am. But anyway, no, seriously, though, self-care is real important. And at one point, we're not everybody's taught this. This is something that now, with the dawn of psychology not being, in its birthplace, but actually well established now, there's more data and there's more knowledge on this. And if, it's just common sense. If you're not in a healthy place for yourself, that you can't go forward where you want to go. So Kristin made a good point. tie your goals to reality. Also, make your goals small and achievable at first. Don't set, yeah, you might want to be superwoman, but you're not going to put on the gold bracelets first. So, you've got to start somewhere.